Yeah,
I want to get into the publishing though, because
okay.
a lot of people think like because it's something that's regarded as highly when you write a book, because it takes a lot of time and effort. And sometimes people think, well, I didn't go to school, I can't write a book. Or it's like you can literally write about your experiences. It doesn't, you can do it from your home. You don't need anyone's approval to do it. And then once you do that, and once we are getting all these thoughts and creativity on paper, then we come see you.
Mm.
So let's dive into the publishing business. Because I wanted to write a book, a novel, and I seen how extremely hard it is. I wrote the whole plot out, and I was like, all right, how do I put the words together like an actual dialogue and conversation? So when you get your customer, someone like me, for example, and I come to you and say I just have the plot, are you able to help me, or do I have to fully write out the entire book first and then you just editing? Or what does it take to get published?
Good question. So if you have the plot, then I would like kind of talk you through it, because I can't write it for you.
Exactly.
Oh, and the thing about it is, let me just say this. I'm working on a novel as well. And I've been working on this novel like all year long. And I'm on page 48. And
It's
it
hard.
is hard. When I wrote my other book, because that was like what I know, that's like my thing,
Exactly.
education. But this is like it's tapping into a whole nother area of the brain, creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay. And then I know what I want my characters to say, but I can't write fast enough. So it's like, oh. But what I will say to you is, now you just have to take your time and don't worry about, I heard this from Terry McMillan, don't worry about editing yourself. Don't edit yourself. And this is something else she said. I love her, by the way. And she said, don't write it with the thought of it becoming a bestseller. Just write for yourself. And so what helped me a lot, even when I was doing 8 Pearls of Wisdom, what really helped me a lot was doing the talking into the device, because I can explain or say what I want to say way faster than I can write it.
Absolutely.
And so I would have the say exactly everything I wanted to say, and it's gonna, type it up for you. And then what you do, you're gonna clean all that stuff up later.
Exactly.
So you can clean it up first, and then when you send it to me, then I don't send it to an editor.
Oh, okay.
Because that's the thing. We think, oh, we have to do everything so perfectly.
No,
That's
you
why
don't.
they have editors that do all that.
And then they even have it to where if you speak into the device, it will write it out for you. So you're like,
that's exactly what I did.
oh,
Because
so
it got to a point where I was thinking faster than I could write. So I was like, you know what, let me just, and so Google, I use Google Voice, I use my cell phone, and I would just write, and but sometimes it doesn't come out like, because I would read it afterwards. I was like, what in the world? So then I have to clean it up, and I cleaned it up before I even sent it to the editor. So that's what I would advise. That's definitely what I would advise. Terry McMillan says, just write. So I've just started writing, even if I'm writing, handwriting with a pen and paper. A lot of times we think, oh, we have to sit at the typewriter or sit at the computer and type it out. No, we don't. So I was on a flight in August coming back from somewhere, and I had an interaction with this woman who was running the hotel. And a couple of comments that she made to me really didn't rub me the right way. And I was like, you know what? This is going to be perfect for my book. I took some of the things she said and I put it, I was like, I'm going to use this in my book, in my storyline. So everything then becomes, okay, can I use that? Can I use that? So yeah, so even though you may have the story in your head of what you want to do, just still everything that's going on around you, it might be something that you can use.
okay.
So, and I do that. So, and again, it's like, I'll use that scenario with my character, even though my character didn't travel to that particular part of the world. You know, my character is in a different part. So, you know, you just take little things and then you can put them in your book for your character, because everything doesn't have to happen the way it actually happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes our lives are interesting enough.
Yeah, especially if it's fiction. You know, with fiction, you can be all over, you know, you can create anything with fiction. And so you can have something that happens and you can put it how you want it to happen. Exactly.
You embellish to the full extent.
Exactly.
Let's make this entertaining.
Which is what I have done. It's funny because I sent some pages to one of my nieces to read. And I'll just tell you this. So the name of my upcoming novel, which is a fiction, is called Count It All Joy. That's the name of the book. And the main characters have been inspired. They are not them, inspired by my mother, my father, myself, and two of my nieces. No, one niece and my daughter. One niece and my daughter, and my father. But my father dies early in the book. But he's alive in real life, but in the book he dies early. Oh, the character dies early, excuse me. That he's inspired by. So my niece, when she read it, she said, "Is that really how Granny and Grandpa met?" I was like, "No."
Exactly.
This is fiction.
That's kind of like along the lines of what, but I haven't even, I mean, I sat there and tried to put stuff together a couple times and I just draw blank after blank. I even tried talking, so I put it down. I started mine like last year. I'm on page like 2.
So what is your, without giving away too much? Okay, so identify, because you know what your plot is.
Mm-hmm.
You know your characters.
Yeah, I know my characters.
Okay, so this is something that I learned. So you really need to know your characters. When I say that, this is what I learned. You got to get backstories on your characters. You got to know. So you can't just name your character. So that's why my characters had to be inspired by real people, because I was like, okay, so I need some backstory on these people. Like, you got, even if you're not putting all this in the book, you got to know your character. So my one particular character who's inspired by my mother, I created a whole backstory for her. So I knew my mother had, her uncle had sent for her to come to live with him in Boston when she graduated from high school. But my story takes place in Los Angeles in the early 1960s. So I used that bit of information that I knew, and I created a whole nother storyline where she was sent by her uncle to come and live in Los Angeles, in where he lived in the West Adams district, and he worked for Washington Golden State Mutual as one of the few African American, you know, the bank or the insurance company founded by African Americans. So I had to do research on Golden State Mutual, on who founded it, on all of that stuff. I had to, and I found out the person came from Texas. So I had to do research on how her family would know this person. So I contacted someone that I knew who grew up in Texas, and I found out what her parents did. So it's a lot that goes, even before you start writing the story, it's a lot that goes into researching those characters. So instead of trying to just focus on the story and the plot, why don't you focus on who these people are?
Oh, okay.
And get their backstories and know every single thing about them, even if it's not going in the book. Terry McMillan said she had to know who her characters were, and she would create all this rich history and backstory for all of her characters. So then when the character is saying something, or she wanted the character to say something, it wouldn't even make sense, because she was like, no, that person wouldn't say that, because I already know who that person is. So writing a novel is a lot more than just having a story and just writing. It's all of the research that you have to put into it before you even start writing. So that's my tip of the day.
Yeah, because with mine, it was a little different. It was I had the entire story and I knew exactly how I wanted it to start all the way to how I wanted it to end. But I didn't have places, I didn't have conversation, I didn't have people. Like I only got like 2 people in the entire story, but it's a full story. Like if I read you that like narrative that I got, it's like, oh, that sounds good.
You did like a whole 3 pages on what the plot is. You was like, this is enough material, and then you get to the part put it together. It's like, and you write places, the dialogue.
Yeah, it's jumping. But once we try to actually start it off, the beginning is the hardest part to me because you got to draw them in. Like it was a mystical land.
So what you probably, like I said, what you want to do is you definitely want to like, and believe me, I was like, man, I'm spending more time researching. That's why people like, it takes a year to 2 to 3 to write a novel, because aside from writing the story, you have to do research. Yeah. So I'm gonna, if you guys don't mind, I'm gonna just read you. I figured out how to share now. I'm gonna read you a line or the first lines from my upcoming book. Okay. So then you'll kind of see what I'm
all right.
If you don't mind.
Absolutely. This is the whole point of the podcast. We want more writers, we want more thinkers, we want more entrepreneurs. We, like I said, the word of the day, monetize. We want to monetize all these skills and things that we have just sitting, and we just let them just go unused, untapped potential. And we want to bring all that out of everyone we can. That's the whole entire point of this.
Yeah, you are the very first guest to go ahead and share their screen and give some extra information. It's needed. It is very much needed, but we didn't want to like jump in and like slow people down and be like, go ahead and Google that.
you know, it's the teacher in me.
As you should. Yeah, that's what it's here for. Absolutely. Use those extra features and attachments.
Yeah, it's the teacher in me. I can't help it sometimes.
Yeah, but back to what you were saying though, I think that's why prequels are probably always more interesting than sequels when it comes to like writing and movies and all that stuff like that. You always want to see that's how this character was created. The prequels of the movies is always better than the part 2s and part 3s. The beginning, how it really all started. So that is very true, because when you get into stuff. And then it's funny that you say that, because putting that in perspective, like certain things I've watched, like Power, for example, is a TV show to where there was these characters, and then now there's all these different worlds and different characters getting their own show, and it just shows you it shows you literally what you telling us right now, like that person already did that, and then I can use that, and I can create something off of that. And now you just go into a whole nother world because there's no characters that you're doing that for. And that's why they call it the Power universe. And that's just a popular show everybody watches right now.
Oh, I watch it.
Oh, you watch it? Exactly what I'm talking about.
I'm a fan. Oh, yes. I watched the one with 50 Cent, and I'm watching this one now. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
I know exactly what I mean. How they just diving into the backstories of everybody, or what happens in this scenario and that scenario, and that's why to everyone, anybody that watches this, it takes some real work in creating your characters, and she's telling us that is the key right now. About to give us an example of the work that goes into even creating the beginnings,
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
So for some reason I cannot find a story, but you know what? I'm gonna find it. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna show you the work that went into it. Like you were just saying. Give me one. I'm so I don't you good. Things don't come together the way you want it to.
Oh, and we still gotta go through editing, so don't worry about nothing. We could.
Oh, this isn't live.
It is, but you still, yeah, it's not live. So we gonna
We
edit
recording, but it's not live. Don't worry. Yeah, don't
Oh,
stress yourself
good.
too much.
Oh, good. Because I'm like trying to make sure.
Nah,
Oh,
when he do the video, he gonna spruce it up and everything.
Great. So for you guys, this is where I started. So this was the original cover that I had the inspiration. So this is my actual family. Okay. And so the title of the book is Count It All Joy. And so this just kind of shows you some of the research that I did first. I pulled together pictures, because I wanted to get a feel for the time period.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to get a feel for, okay, who is going to be playing, who do I see playing these characters? So that way, when I have an image in my head and I'm writing, I know what I'm doing. So just to kind of give you guys a brief synopsis, the story takes place in present day. Well, it took place in present day during the pandemic, right around the time of George Floyd getting murdered. And so the story starts with my daughter and my niece, talking about, what's his name? I can't believe Trump just, tweeted this and blah, blah, blah. And then we end up kind of talking to them, the two main characters, the grandmother, which is inspired by my mother, and the daughter, inspired by me, end up talking to them about in history how these things have happened before. And so she shares, the grandmother shares the story about when Martin Luther King Jr. came to LA after the Watts riots and met with people, and how he was actually booed during that time. And that's the same time she met who would become her husband, who's inspired, that character inspired by my father, because my father was a huge Martin Luther King Jr. fan and would get really upset when people were like speaking negative of him. So in the story, he gets angry because everybody is booing him and walks out. And then the other character, Dolores, she goes out, to talk to him. And so they talk and everything. And so then when she's retelling the story to her granddaughter and her niece, and she's talking about, they ask her, well, what do you remember most from that night? And she says, I remember how cute he was. Not Martin Luther King Jr., but how cute the guy that she met was. And so it just humanizes that here, this is a huge thing going on in history. Martin Luther King, she just saw him there, but she remembers this guy. And so and the girls are like, really, and they're like tripping, but it makes the story so relatable and real because she's real. And that's basically how my mom was. It was like, I was like, Mama, you mean to tell me the Black Panthers were standing on the corner of Washington and Adams, and Western and Adams? Did you ever go and try to talk to them? She was like, oh no, I crossed the street when I saw them, but that was like her, that was like my mother's personality. So I really pulled a lot of her into it. And so because when my niece was reading it, she believed it was, my mother. She was like, is that how they met? I was like, oh no, that part's fiction.
Yeah, I was just doodling right there. No,
no, that part's fiction. No, that's not how they met. So, a good work of fiction, you make it seem like it's real.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so why did you choose this field?